the biggest mistake we can make as trainers and strength coaches is designing programs to impress our peers versus designing programs that serve our people.
Hello and welcome to the Breaking Muscle Podcast, where each week we bring you exclusive interviews with some of the most recognizable personalities in the fitness industry. I am Pete Hitzeman, managing editor at breakingmuscle.com, and hosting today's show is leading contributor Shane Trotter. If you're new to trying to get in shape, the ocean of options available to you can be daunting. There are hundreds of different implements, machines, protocols, and programs, all claiming to be the best way for you to achieve your goals. But BJ Gaddour is here to tell you that you don't need all that noise. BJ is the author of Your Body is Your Barbell and has recently launched his own site to bring his approach to the masses. Though he grew up as a fat kid, he made it all the way to the cover of Men's Health, so he knows firsthand what it's like to struggle with food. In fact, he admits that it's still a struggle, but he's found a structure that helps him stay on track. BJ and Shane discuss his background and why he believes we need to form our fitness philosophy from a wide variety of information. BJ details how the right exercise selection can take care of most of your fitness problems, why metabolic conditioning is the most effective tool for most people's fitness goals, and why it's important for fitness professionals to work from a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. If you're enjoying the show, do us a favor and share it with all your friends and give us a like and a review over on iTunes. And as always, if you have any comments or feedback about the podcast, email them to editorial@breakingmuscle.com.
Hey, we have BJ Gaddour here today. He's the former director of fitness for fitness director for Men's Health. He's recently left to start his own website, thedailybj.com. Often seen a hashtag, not a porn site. I think that's important to going in. Just
not a porn site yet.
Yet.
Yes.
Okay. Well, more to come there. I'm sure that I'm sure that could get interesting. But anyway, great to have you on today, BJ. I've followed you. I kind of got into the fitness industry like a lot of people. 18, 19, reading Men's Health, just being interested in it. And so I've been following you and your workouts for a long time. So cool to sit down.
Man, thanks for having me. I'm sure we'll have a great talk today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right on. Well, first of all, you've done a ton of stuff. 7 workout DVDs, if I'm correct. Body is Your Barbell, which is an awesome book. Great progressions and regressions and a ton of body weight stuff. Really a great pickup for anybody who's looking just to get started with no equipment and a great intro level as well as advanced progressions built on that. But it's interesting. I've come across your story a few times. Would you mind telling how you got into fitness and the photograph that kind of changed your life?
Yeah, man. Well, I was a fat kid growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the land of beer, brats, and cheese. Not exactly the mecca of fitness. And food was a big part of my family life. It's a way I think most of the people in my family would show love. I actually had a plate I would use at dinner that said "You are special" on it, and it was a huge plate, and it was just one of those things like you always finish the food. You don't leave a speckle of food on the plate. We'd even lick the plates, and we'd even take bread and soak up the sauces, and that's kind of just how it was. Food was. I love food. It became kind of a comfort thing and maybe a coping mechanism for me. As you go through those teenage years and trying to figure out your identity, and ultimately I kind of just lost control with it. As I started lifting when I was about 14 years old, I did my first workout. My high school football coach, down 40 in University School of Milwaukee, you're a strength coach, so he was the football coach, the track coach,
sure,
conditioning coach. He was also a record-breaking powerlifter in the state of Wisconsin, and he was like Mickey from Rocky, like this he was a tank, really small guy, but like super stocky. And he would one day in the halls of the school in 8th grade, he yells at me, "Yo, BJ, you gonna come to the weight room?" And I went up there. He taught me how to bench, how to squat, how to deadlift, and how to power clean in the same day. And the next week, every muscle fiber in my body was just wrecked. And, places that I didn't even know had muscle. And for a 14-year-old kid, fat kid who doesn't, have a whole lot of self-esteem and, to be able to feel for the first time in your life that, like, wow, this is, if I can feel these muscles, it means I can build them. I can change them. I can change the way I look, and I can change the way people perceive me. And I haven't missed a workout since that day. I'm 34 now. I was 14 then. I've made a lot of mistakes in between. And part of that process, too, I was a football player, and I played in college, a lineman on both sides. And I only play defense in college because that's what you do. But I played in high school, both sides, special teams, like, the platoon style, like you never leave the field. Those are the best. Like, it's exhausting, but I'll never forget how rewarding it is when you win a game and you never step off the field. That's a side note for those that like football and want to reminisce. But as you know, it's all about getting as big and strong as possible, moving the loads. So my foundation was more with weights and not body weight. And I got caught in this trap of like trying to beat myself every session. I was on the bigger, faster, stronger plan. So like basically it's so funny like how badly the loading was set up, because we would do like 5-3-1 and then people would get like 10 reps because it was 5-3-1 plus, and they would get like 10 reps on the one. It's like you're trying to beat yourself every time, and you're rotating these rep ranges. And I got caught in that because the reward of like seeing the numbers constantly go up, but with that came pushing things that I shouldn't have pushed, technique issues, and then eating as much as I could to get strong and big, because the great thing about lifting weights is that the heavier you get, you seem to like automatically get stronger. And I gained about 100 pounds or so in about a year and a half. And I found myself at 275, triple XL shirt, size 44 pants. My knees were so bad. I had so much tendonitis, and I already had a couple surgeries under my belt, like torn meniscus. And I went on a cruise in the year 2000, and I saw a picture of myself that we took right before we boarded the cruise, the boarding photo, and like was rocking like this double, triple chin, and I just looked miserable, and it was a wake-up call. I'm like, I got to make a change. This is not how I want to live my life. At that age, small changes make a huge difference. I basically cut out bread and soda and juice, lost 50 pounds, and then had a great senior season in high school, and was able to then play college football at the next level at Amherst College. And it unlocked for me like a whole new path. Like I had the pleasure of earlier in this year being on the cover of Men's Health magazine, and it was a goal like right around that time when I made the original changes. Like not a goal you would ever say out loud. Like when you're fat and living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, no one would even entertain that possibility. But they featured that photo around that time, and then my current physique, and it was kind of almost like sickening, depressing to me to see that former picture, because I'm like, what would have happened had I not made those changes? Like fitness has unlocked for me so many things. I would not have been able to play football at the next level. I would not have been able to go to the best liberal arts school in the country. I met my wife at that school, so like that set a whole new course for me as well. And ultimately, it kind of unlocked me on a path. Like the goal, really, when I got started, was to get paid to lift. Like that was the goal, and maybe have at least one steak a week. And those still are my kind of major keys of success. But that's kind of and I know it's probably a long introduction, but that's the short version of what's been a 2-decade plus odyssey of trying to overcome my own obstacles with injuries and being overweight, helping others do the same. But really just like, don't have to be overweight, you don't have to have an injury, but just find ways that the average person can see how much fitness can unlock in their current life. Energy, stamina, self-esteem, resiliency, longevity, and that's really kind of what I'm all about.
Absolutely. That was all. There's so much there I want to pull on and kind of get into. I guess the best place to start is discussing both your love for the weight room and how that was kind of bred from an excitement to be able to change things, but also probably some early success. I tell coaches all the time, I love being the strength coach because everyone can be successful in the weight room, and kind of building those early positive emotional connotations. But also to look at the emotions that were tied to the foods, and overcoming that. And it's I think very important to note how food can be such an emotional thing. So I guess my question is, how do you go about when you're working with clients now, using your own experience and understanding intimately how, you were probably told like I was, if you're a football player, if it's not nailed down, eat it. You're praised because, BJ never leaves a plate empty. Oh, there won't be leftovers. BJ's here. So how did you change that, and how do you help others who are dealing with the same sort of things?
Well, I mean, the reality is, man, it was a battle because in college, again, like I got back up to like 275 again. It was a better 275, though, more muscle, and I mean, I had to eat a lot of food to just be able to maintain that weight. And then when I finished my senior season and football was over, it was the first time in my life I could actually like try to get abs. I always had the top two. To be clear, even when I was fat, I could still see like the top two.
Might have been the fold over from sitting, but
that could have been that too. I guess it never got so bad that I couldn't at least see like something right beneath the ribs. But it was the first time I could just like try to get abs and look good, and I started making those changes and started less powerlifting, more bodybuilding, more conditioning, and then kind of really experimenting with the 1.0 version of my current diet, which is basic carb calorie cycling, the concept of a weekly cheat, so to speak, so you can still get that weekly reward and stay sane. And the Men's Health book, The Abs Diet, had just kind of come out, and I got that book, and they're like, just eat this way during the week and then fucking kill it on Fridays. And I took that a little too far. Like we would do, I've never drank alcohol in my life because I've got alcoholics, rabid alcoholics in my family lineage. So I've been trying to avoid even opening the door to that. So I went to a bar crawl. We would do food crawls. We'd go to like the burrito place. We'd go to the pizza shop. We'd get the black desserts at the local like bakery area, and basically with the goal of trying to create an intense amount of gastrointestinal distress. And then the whole next week would be spent trying to burn that all up. And I quickly kind of saw like I was just getting myself kind of back to square one every Friday, and then I would do it again. It was kind of the self-destructive process. I did some amateur bodybuilding shows like Mr. Wisconsin at the State Fair, and then I like got really shredded, and then gained 35 pounds in 5 days right after that show ended, and was in worse shape than I did before I started that 16-week kind of shred process. So I was going through like the yo-yo battles of how can I maintain this, and heavier in the winter, heavier and hairier and paler in the winter, and then shredded and jacked in the summer. And part of what I had to do too, like especially as I got into working with Men's Health, is you got to be able to take your shirt off at least once a week. And so I had to find a way to just try to be lean, maybe not super shredded year-round, but just lean enough where I look like I know what I'm doing, and I don't have to have these periods of time where like I'm afraid to take photos or do video. And ultimately, the diet I kind of locked in was one where I eat 2 large meals a day that are protein, produce, or meat, vegetable based, and then on Fridays, I'll have 1 or 2 meals that deviate from that plan. I'll still have protein and produce, but my big thing is like 5 Guys and fries on Friday. I always go get my 2 lettuce burgers and then a big fry. And then in the evening, if I don't have something coming up and I'm a little more flexible, I'll have pizza, or I'll have, nachos or other stuff that I've been craving during the week that I haven't had, and they get right back on track on Saturday. And that to me has been the lifestyle that has been super sustainable. It's something I can look forward to each week, and it still allows me, like, that's the thing, man, like, you don't want to ever take away the joy of food. I mean, I really like food. Like, when people say, like, oh, I forgot to eat, I'm like, is that a fucking thing? I mean, my life is, if I was going to write an autobiography, it would be called Between Meals, because that's how I live. My wife and I are eating lunch, and we're talking about already what's going to be for dinner. That's never going to change. You can't really fight how you're wired. but you can set up a structure that allows you to have success but not be a robot, and I think too many of us are robots. We're afraid to share like the fact that we are real people, and I mean, we like diet soda, and maybe we'll have a soda on occasion, a regular one, and we like pizza, and we have the pressure to show ourselves as these perfect mechanical beings when we're just humans like everyone else, and maybe we do this for a living, and we have a higher standard that we put ourselves to, but, that was a big thing too, like being able to be relatable in that way. The times I had trouble with other people were when they're like, oh, you're just too much, like, I can't be like you, I don't want to be like you, and when they see me having the fries on Friday and they see that I can still look like I know what I'm doing, that it's possible to do both.
Yeah, and you make it catered to you, to your personality, to your needs, to your likes. I think that's essential. Everyone wants this one size fits all. How do I lose weight? And it's highly individualized. And also it's baby steps. Like you were saying earlier, you started off with no bread, no soda, no juice. Great first steps for anybody. Maybe for someone with a little less willpower, maybe just one of those things at a time, and building up to that. But absolutely, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when you have issues with food, some people say like balance and moderation and everything. But the thing is, when you're trying to make these changes, we know like food has a similar chemical reaction in the brain to drugs, alcohol, a lot of addictive things. Sugar could be equated with those types of substances in a lot of ways. And it's not like you can go a day without eating, right? I mean, you can go a day without drinking. If not, then man, you really are like a raging alcoholic. You can go a day without drugs, but eating is something we have to do every day, so it's super challenging. And people that have issues with food often don't get the credit for how challenging that is. They're seen as lazy or weak-minded, no willpower. I'm someone, as you can tell, like I'm a dedicated person. I never missed. I mean, I even never missed a day of school. Like they gave me a day off from school because I hadn't missed a day. They're like, just take a day. You've won the perfect attendance award. I'm a very dedicated, regimented guy, and even with that, I really struggle with food, and I still do to this day. Like there are some foods that I know I just can't have on a regular basis because I can't just have one. It kind of unleashes me and makes me a beast. So the foods I eat, right? I mean, loading up on protein and produce really limits your ability to take in excess calories. You're just going to get too full.
Yeah.
There's just a limit to it. So you're automatically kind of putting yourself in a better situation. Having two larger meals for me, because eating makes me hungry, as strange as that sounds, eating fewer meals makes me have better energy levels and be less hungry.
Sure.
I find more energy in a fasted state. I like to train in a fasted state. Everybody's different, but that's just what I found for myself. And then just knowing that there are certain foods that I would just have to limit to a set period of time or a day, because again, like people will have some success and like, oh, I'll start introducing some of the stuff back in. It's like it never changes. Like your body is not suddenly going to get better respond to foods it didn't respond to in the past. Now, the more muscle you have, you keep building muscle, you keep it more flexibly. The more muscle you have, the more carbohydrate you can take in. So that's what I tell people, like, get lean first, cut some things out for the short term, and then try to start slowly working them back in once you've built the metabolism that can better handle those foods. And really, it is the reward for all that hard work.
Do you find, though, that that there are some things you just have to cut out absolutely because, for a lot of people it's sodas because it's habitual. It's a habitual pattern. They can't just have one. They can't have one a day. Is that common in your experience or individualized?
I think that's definitely the case for some people, and there also are some things too. Like to me, I went on a rant on this in a recent Facebook Live. I'm like, it's a Tuesday, and I see someone just drinking a regular soda. I'm like, I didn't know people like this still exist. It's like sometimes I got to just remember how far removed I am from, and try to empathize again with where I was when I first started. But like the concept that you would just drink this soda casually, there's debates about artificial sweeteners and whether they're healthier and which is worse. Like, the soda is going to give you diabetes, the diet soda is going to give you cancer. Which one? But I've never had a problem with artificial sweeteners in moderation, working them in, even on like cheat days, stuff like that. I never drink liquid calories. Now, like you're in Puerto Rico and you get like a pina colada, there's exceptions, but liquid calories I think are just always a waste. I'd rather get the satisfaction from food. They'll fill you up. They're not going to leave you as hungry an hour later. So there are just certain things, like when I get the Five Guys and fries, I'm not just going to eat the bun because I can. If it's not like the bun, if the bun doesn't make it better, I'm just going to go with the lettuce wrap because then I can have more fries. So I guess
even in the cheat, you're thinking.
Exactly, yeah. Like don't just, because when I used to do it the wrong way, it would just be eating shit just because shit was available and that it was okay to do it that day, and because the time frame was limited, get as much shit as possible, right? And now it's
just unconscious eating.
Exactly. And now it's like whatever is a quote unquote cheat, you know, it has to be worth it. And what I call these meals now, you know, so, like, kind of the cheesy way is a reward meal. To me, just like it's a fuck it meal. It's a meal that you when you're eating, like, fuck it, this is great. You know, that's how I approach it, because cheat has that kind of like negative connotation with it. It should be a celebration, not like a You're not like eating on your wife. You're having a fun meal.
Sure, it's good to have that balance. It's good to have that release valve to know that there's nothing that is absolutely off limits forever. You're just going to be in a more controlled state most of the time. Everything is always there and available for you. It's flexible. You're not stuck in a cage, so to speak. And you know, I think it's important to find those healthy meals. It's always funny when people talk to me and I'll cook for them or whatever. This is healthy? Yeah. To find those healthy meals that are really very, very delicious as well. I mean, if you haven't had really good salmon, go get some really good salmon, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. There's plenty of foods that fall in that category. I love squash and zucchini, things like that you can do really well. There's one thing in this vein that I wanted to go to. You put on Instagram the other day, my worst nightmare is when people ask me, what do you think about insert current health, fitness, nutrition trend? I love that. One of my standard questions I'll go to now then is, what's the one health or fitness trend that you would eliminate, or fitness myth that you'd eliminate from the earth forevermore?
Well, before I answer that, you might have been one of the people that actually liked that statement, because I realized how I used to have, like, when I did more stuff for trainers, a lot more of a trainer following, or a trainer heavy following. So that proportionally would have killed like 5 or 6 years ago. Now I have a lot of fitness consumers who are asking me these questions on a daily basis. So I think a lot of them were a little butthurt by it. But you know, like, the reality is, you know, you go to a party or you go out to dinner, and then it's like you never want to tell people what you do, because first of all, it's hard to explain. Because most of us, like, we have to do multiple things to even make it in fitness, because you can't just be a trainer. You got to try to find some other income sources, and, you know, now we call ourselves fitness entrepreneurs or whatever the fuck we're calling ourselves now. But so once they find out you're a trainer, it's like game over, because oh, hey, Steve's a trainer. Come over here. He's gonna don't eat that in front of Steve. You know, and so everything becomes, oh, what do you eat? Are you gonna eat that? And the whole event brings out, like, your presence, your mere presence brings out every possible insecurity they have about their diet, the way they look, their exercise program, and it frankly becomes miserable even to go out in public. Like, honestly, one of the signs for me of a good week is how few people did I have to see that week. That's how I my current levels of success.
Sure.
But so you get that question. They'll say, oh, what do you think about CrossFit? Have you seen What the Health? What do you think about that? And it's like, you know, first of all, you start answering the question, and they cut you off because they already have their own opinion in mind, and they're not even going to really listen to you. And then when you do answer it, if they don't like the answer, then they fucking hate you. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. So it's one of those things, like, if you follow me, you already know the answer to that. Like, you should already know, like, what do I think about What the Health? Well, I just posted me eating a porterhouse. So you already know the answer to that.
Sure.
I don't do CrossFit, so I'm not saying it's a bad system, but if I thought it was the best system for me, I would do CrossFit. But the fact that I don't do CrossFit should tell you already that I've already made different choices based on what I'm trying to accomplish. If you like CrossFit, keep rocking it. So basically what I try to tell them is you're asking the wrong questions. Mm-hmm. That's the wrong question. Like and then when people were giving me some like feedback, you should be flattered by it. No, I'm not flattered by it. It basically means that I'm not doing a good enough job teaching you that you have to still ask me this question. So it makes me upset that I'm failing at delivering the proper message. And frankly, as you know, there are some people that are never going to fully listen and just like to ask, or they want you to do the work for them. And you're a coach, right? A good coach doesn't do the work for you, right? They don't make the decision for you. They put you in situations where they empower you to do the best.
To fish, they eat forever. Versus you give a man a fish, they eat for a day. That's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is always autonomy.
Yes.
But some people won't ever get it, and it is the most frustrating thing. The nutrition especially, people struggle with it so badly. And you try to get them not to chase. I always say, don't chase what's flashy. Don't go to the gimmicks. Look for sustainable practices. And after explaining it to enough people, I wrote an article. I'm going to write, the definitive how to sustainably eat healthy, not chase a fad gimmick diet. So I wrote it, and I thought, every client I train individually, every friend or family member, whoever asks, I'm going to give them this article. Yeah, exactly, right? So I forget what the article was called. It published, I think, last September or October. And they might look at it, but they're not reading it. They're not reading it closely. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one who reads my own stuff. So then,
dude, that was me for the first 10 years. So don't worry about that.
So then I go and I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn this into worksheets to help people build their own shopping list, help them, build their own weekly planner, help them look for roadblocks and obstacles, help them decide what things they might need to buy to make success more likelihood, maybe Tupperwares, etc. I broke down habit formation with analogies from a book called Switch and then the book called Habit, in one ear, out the other.
And then you took them to the grocery store.
Well, that would be the next. So then I talked to a family member, and she's paying someone like $20 a week for a literal grocery list, and that's all. She pays like $20 a week for a grocery list, or 15 or whatever it is. And my mind is going nuts. It's like just because I try to get people to form their own, I couldn't pay someone to take these worksheets I put together, but this person just writes down ingredients on a list and charges $15. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna make a video. I made a 30-minute video, with images and how you form a habit, suggest this whole process. Just share like this is gonna be the holy grail. I could probably sell this for $50 a pop. I'm thinking this is gonna hack nutrition for the masses. I'm going to change the world. And of course, I think I put it on YouTube. I think it's got one view. My wife, God bless her.
No, I mean, look, when we got started too, like we actually created a nutrition system that I got a registered trademark for called Eternal Eating, and we built out this like 300-page cookbook, and we used to do grocery store tours for all new members. And I remember one time we had just talked about like how you want to avoid the middles of the store and stay on the perimeters, and don't want to be having too much bread. And this woman asked me, she goes, so what do you think about sandwiches? And I'm like, we had just talked about this. And it's like you said, like you've got they'd rather get the done for you list than you take them through the store and just tell them exactly how they should be looking for foods, what foods are best. And nutrition is my least favorite part of this whole thing. Like I approach things as, like I'm not going to throw it in your face. People like to know what I'm eating. They like to know what you're eating. Even though what I'm eating will be different than what you should eat, there's some lessons you can take, right? Like lots of colors, whatever protein. You want to go animal protein, you want to go vegan sources, that's up to you. But we can all agree that at least half of it should be plant-based. and then how much ever of the rest of it you want to make animal versus plant-based, it's up to you. That's up to your lifestyle. I will say, like there's like this trend now where like you get attacked by vegans. Like, I mean, most of the problems I have during each given week is like getting like massacred by a vegan because I have some meat on my plate, or like this one dude that lost his mind because he's like, I had that porterhouse and some cauliflower rice with a little bit of cheese in it. Not even that much cheese. It wasn't that cheesy. And again, I'm from Wisconsin. Like, I'm not going to stop eating. Get a clue. And he's like, I respect you, man, but all that dairy and meat's breaking you down. You got to educate yourself and go vegan. And I'm like, so I responded to him, and I'm like, sounds like someone just watched What the Health. And then he got super defensive, and he's like, again, like, the one thing I will say, if you can watch a single documentary or talk to a single person and completely change your lifestyle, that says a lot about the foundation with which you've currently built, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, you want to accumulate a variety of sources, like our news. We see one thing that's sensational, and we'll just stick to that and believe it if it fits with our belief system. And if we see something that is true, it doesn't fit in our belief system, we discard it, versus like following some people that you disagree with, agree with sometimes, disagree with sometimes, and having just a wide enough variety of sources and outlets to basically make your own opinions and decisions. And by the way, this dude's in college. Like, his balls haven't even dropped, and he's trying to tell me to educate himself because he watched an hour-long Netflix documentary. So it's just one of those things. Like, I don't go to your page and say, like, hey, bro, you're going to miss all the gains with those plants. I mean, like, I don't do that. So don't come to my page and tell me how to eat. There are certain ethical and environmental benefits to going vegan, which I appreciate. I tried it for like 3 days. It was fucking miserable. And that's why the best part is, like, they come to my page and say, would you ever consider doing a 30-day vegan challenge? And I said, well, would you ever consider, what would you say if I came to your page and said, well, you do a 30-day carnivore challenge? And like, oh, that's different. Like, well, it's actually not. The way I would respond to it would be, I get kind of defensive, and it just, they lose that perspective. And they're like, well, I'm not trying to change the way you eat or push my stuff on you, but will you try this 30-day vegan challenge? And I'm like, well, it sure sounds like that's what you're trying to do. And I think that comes back to the ultimate. I'm not trying to beg on vegans. This might just be me venting to someone of a similar mindset and field who probably knows what I'm talking about. Because, man, not all vegans are like this, but the ones that are
sure.
Brutal.
It's like any dogma.
Dude, exactly. And really what it is never being overly dogmatic and pushing your belief system on someone else. You'll never convert someone that way. And we've all been that way, like, especially with family. Like, you see family who you love and care about making terrible decisions for their health, and you try to help them, but you could be the best expert in the world, and your family doesn't give a shit what you think.
Sure. Yeah.
So people don't respond that way. What they really respond to is being led by example. That's how I led as a captain when I was a football player. That's how I lead today, is that I will show you, I will share with you, I will open your mind to different things. You will make the decisions yourself. I'm not going to throw it in your face. If you can do it as a vegan, do it as a vegan. Great. Let's talk about exercise then. You know what I mean? Like, let's focus on what we can agree on. And
sure. Well, the unfortunate thing, these overly dogmatic vegans is this example. The unfortunate thing is in their mind, people are really unhealthy. It's a huge problem, and they're going to fix it by spreading their gospel. The unfortunate thing is they're right. People are really unhealthy. I work in a school system, and I've written a ton on this. It drives me insane that we ingrain habits and patterns that virtually guarantee people a long, hard life full of mental and emotional toil surrounding their health. You look at the epidemic of obesity, you look at the rise in diabetes, and all these things, the orthopedic problems. We make our kids sit all day. There is a great need for widespread help for people in their health. Having said that, they are turning people away with their methods of trying to spread that message. They've gone too far, but because they're so dogmatic and so unopen to any view but their own, they can't communicate with any person at any stage, who are all at very different stages, if that makes sense.
Dude, it makes perfect sense. Basically, it's like, it's almost becomes a cult-like religious type of thing. Like, when someone comes up to you at Target and tries to get you to convert to their religion, like, that to me is like, so you're expecting this person at Target maybe get like some toiletries or some toilet paper, whatever, to just change their entire belief system off of this interaction. Now, what happens is, like, that happens every once in a while. They do get someone, because they find someone who is going
Lost.
through a ridiculous time that it's exactly what they need, someone to come and talk to them, support them, listen.
Sure.
And it's no different than, you know, trying to convert someone to veganism or trying to convert someone to do CrossFit. You know, people have to be, they've got to make the decision on their own. They can't be pushed into it. Mm-hmm. And when you take that zealot route, yes, you can get like some create a crazy amount of fervor around what you do. But then also you get people so inside the box with their thoughts that they're not capable of thinking about it any different way. So
yes,
CrossFit is the only way that you train, and you have an injury. Well, how are you going to rehabilitate that injury? It might have to be a little bit different style of training than CrossFit to get you back. But because it's not CrossFit, they look at that. They would look at that as not being a good style of training, or weak, or for everybody else. And so again, like, you always got to be very careful of dogmatic expressions of whether it's fitness, beliefs, all that stuff. You just got to be, open-minded, and you got to be willing to. Again, that's why I like the fitness side of it. Like, I like to lead people's change through exercise, because eventually you'll realize, wow, if I keep eating like shit, all this work is not going to be worth it. Because again, a workout is an hour of your day. Like, eating is something you're going to do throughout the day.
Eating is going to make way more difference.
Exactly.
Sure. And you're going to feel much more. Eventually, when you are dreading the thought of movement every day, because you feel like crap, because you've eaten like crap every day for so long, that can kind of push the nutrition thing forward too.
You bet.
You've mentioned CrossFit a few times, and I actually wrote an article about CrossFit a couple of weeks ago about suggested possible structural things they could change to make workouts safer and to appropriately individualize. But that brings me to a question. A lot of what you do is create programs for to be done by the masses. I know that in my job it's extremely difficult. I work with over 500 athletes in a week, and I have to create a program for each team. But there's a ton of individual differences, and I have to be able to scale and progress and regress and get kids to understand a system to where they can actually get the right dose, whether it's weight on the bar or it's the progression regression in a movement that is right for them, which is a very tough thing. So, I mean, there's just innate challenges in mass programming. So I'm always interested to hear how different trainers attack that problem, and what your best advice is for also for newbies who are going in and don't understand how things need to be scaled and individualized.
The most important factor in my mind when it comes to programming is exercise selection. Mm-hmm. If you are selecting low impact, low risk, high return movements, the other variables become much less important. They really do. Like heavier load, lighter load, medium load, reps, tempo, all that stuff is great. It has its role. But when you're picking the right movements that don't take anything away from you, that give you a training effect without a cost, or with as small a cost as possible, you're already 95% ahead of everybody else. So unless your goal is to be a record-breaking deadlifter, if your goal is just to build your butt, well, you'll actually do it with a hip thrust better than you could a deadlift. We have muscle activation studies that prove that without the spinal loading. You can hip thrust, well, we hope you can hip thrust for the rest of your life, right? And that's otherwise, that's another thing we've got to work on.
That's a later part of the daily BJ site.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, like, it all comes back to that. And it's only $9.69 per month, by the way. That's the actual membership price, by the way. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, so exercise selection. So, people die every year bench pressing. No one has ever died from a push-up, right? So there's just certain situations where when I see, and I've said this before, and again, this might offend some people that are really into CrossFit. You take away the barbells and rings in CrossFit, and you get rid of like 99% of the problems. Because rings are a high-skill movement gymnasts, Olympic-level gymnasts spend, from the time they're babies, years developing skills on a set of rings. And they do it in situations of typically full recovery, right? Not like doing a barbell move, running with a weighted vest, and then coming onto a set of rings and expecting someone to do 21 ring muscle ups in an unstable environment when their shoulders are already fried. And the same thing with a barbell. Like, I get way better muscle pumps from Bulgarian split squats than I ever did from barbell back squats. And they feel better. It doesn't take me 3 to 5 days to recover from it. So again, like, it really is about
sustainability,
Sustainability, right? And that's the thing. Like, I had 4 knee surgeries by the time I was 22, 2 on each knee. And so as much as that sucked, it forced me at a younger age to make those changes where I don't want to be in pain anymore. I don't want to go through this stuff anymore. Every time I do a set, a rep, a movement in the gym, I ask why. If I don't have a good answer to that why, I've got to rethink my programming. So,
that's right.
And that's the biggest thing. Like, what are you trying to get out of this? You just try, if you want to deadlift, you've got to deadlift. If you just want to be fit and you want to do this for a long time, there sure are a lot less risky movements that accomplish the same thing, if not for most, which most people's goals are what, right? To be more energetic, more mobile, look better.
Healthy and toned. Yeah.
Exactly. You get a better workout from lunging a lap around the track than you could from a deadlift workout for most people.
Sure. Well, I mean, and I think this is, it's Breaking Muscle. This is a site for people who love weightlifting, probably, who love, it might be yoga, all variations. It's a fitness community. A lot of RKCs. I love kettlebells myself. I'm a strength and conditioning coordinator. I have a long process where I get kids to where they can deadlift, to where they can squat, to where they can do these barbell lifts. But that's sports performance, and I think that to get to you're making such a phenomenal point that I don't want people to again go inside and get defensive on, because there's a lot of people who might listen to this who might CrossFit, who are getting defensive. There's a lot of people who might, I'm training for the RKC right now. A lot of people who love kettlebells who might be getting defensive. Whatever the thing is you love. What is so great about what you are doing and what you're saying right now is it's for the masses. For someone, possibly you do love body weight stuff and you'll be attracted to what you do, BJ. But it's a great message in that as things become more skill dependent, well, obviously there's more risk, but you need more rest for them. That's just the reality is of these things. So we need to be able to look at things. You're not saying that a guy who competes in CrossFit is wrong. You're not saying that a guy who likes the barbell is wrong. You're saying that for the masses, for a program that is giving the majority of people what they want, which is health and tone, the exercise selection, picking the right exercises, almost takes care of all the inevitable miscalculations and misunderstandings of actually executing a workout. If I give anyone a workout to execute, they're not going to execute it like I wrote it, intended it to be. That's just the reality, unless I'm standing over them.
Look, it's like investing. I mean, if these are just facts. Like, the thing to me is, at some point, you're going to have to change the way you train anyway, so why not pick a system right now that all the changes are done? You're just going to pursue this. You can actually do this the rest of your life. And we know this. Like, competitive powerlifters, I'm friends with a lot of them. And by the way, like, I don't hate powerlifting. I don't hate CrossFit. I benched 385. I pulled 525. Like, not great numbers. Like, it's weak. You go on Instagram, and these are like warm-up weights. But I've done the heavy lifting. I felt it. I've been on both sides, and then I've gone to one and back to another, and ultimately it's just, I can just tell you, if the goal wasn't to get I mean, there's no way you can't get stronger than you can with classic powerlifting and Olympic lifting. There's no denying that.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal is muscle mass, those are not the best routes to achieve that.
That's right.
I've gotten more muscle development from lunging for an hour straight than I ever did from back squatting. I built my butt way bigger than I ever been able to build it with moves like hip thrusts and Bulgarian split squats and stuff like that than I ever did from deadlifts. Am I as strong as I was then? Probably not, but I move a lot better. So again, it really is like what you're trying to accomplish, and the reality to at some point you're going to have to change that style of training. Most powerlifters can maybe get to their 40s if they can get there, and then a lot of them are looking at hip replacements and other issues that come with that. But it's worth it to them, right? Because they love it.
Exactly.
But there's nothing worse than someone who doesn't necessarily love it but thinks they have to do it, breaks themselves down, and then says that they hate fitness and hate working out because it makes them hurt, when in reality they just didn't have the right exercises. So I think most of the injuries you see, most of the reasons people don't continue with fitness long term or can't stay with a sustainable workout is they don't pick sustainable movements.
And I'd like to kind of dig into how you do program workouts, because I think another thing is, you say it's sustainable, it's something you can do forever. It's also not boring. It's very, for my wife, when I make her workouts, I often go straight to you. I look at the stuff you're doing, and it's like, okay, these are the things she's going to find interesting. They're challenges, very much in the metabolic conditioning realm, typically, but they tend to be an infinite number of variations and ways of doing things, just like any other modality. Can you kind of tap into that and how you do look at programming?
So, part of the thing whether you're a strength coach or trainer or both, it's very easy for us to want to push our goals on the client. When the reality is the average person is trying to look lean, maybe see some separation between the muscle groups, get more mobile, and maybe they have 30 minutes 3 times a week to do it. Mm-hmm. There's no better way than Metcon style of training to do that. Now, I'll be the first to say that there are definite limitations on Metcon. In most cases, the benefits from Metcon will be maxed out in about 16 weeks. But for most people, the look they'll get from it is all they're looking for anyway. So maybe maintaining that or making very marginal improvements after that period of time is okay with them. Because the reality is the only way you can do short workouts is with Metcon. A good squat workout will probably take 30 minutes before you even start with your working weight. Sure. People just don't have the time for that. So that's part of it. Like, that's why higher skill movements, as beneficial as they can be, they just take too much time to be able to properly program and implement for most people. So again, that's why a goblet squat or a Bulgarian split squat, something you can just really quickly autocorrect and teach someone and get them a fast, safe training effect, just makes so much more sense than introducing things that are just going to take people years. Like, some people will chase a good back squat for decades and still not find it. That's a real big part of it. And Metcon is basically just giving people that total fitness blend. You get strength, cardio, mobility. You get that athletic kind of base training that people are missing because they're sitting all day. And like you said, there is, like, on this spectrum, right, there is structure, guaranteed results, right? Mm-hmm. Rigid structure will always get you great results, and you have, like, variety, which is fun, but pretty much no results. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to find, for everybody we work with, somewhere in between there where there's just enough structure, just enough variety that some people might be more structure variety, others more variety structure, some might be right in the middle, but you've got to teach people to find the right balance, right? As long as you have a couple movements that you're doing regularly enough that you can kind of see and track and see some progress with, you can have as much variety on top of that to your heart's desire to enjoy your training. But like most guys like you and I, we come from like whatever's on paper that day, that's what we're doing. Even if we feel like shit or our knee hurts, what we got to do today. And so one of the things that I found when all my training was based on deadlines, like camp was in 6 weeks, or we do the bench press test in 8 weeks, that's when I got into trouble, because you start then making decisions based on a date versus your individual body's recovery time, it's accommodation to the training, and that's when you get hurt. And then when I removed the deadlines and just started working on soft timelines, like this year I want to get better at pull-ups, but I'm not going to stress myself out about doing it in 6 weeks or 6 months. I'm just going to do them regularly each week, use a variety of tempo and loading and variation, and just get better that way and make it kind of all of a sudden, like X amount of time later, I've got more muscle mass, I'm better at pull-ups, and I didn't kill myself about doing it in X amount of time. Training becomes a lot more fun, because really what it does become when you're super structured is what? It's a job. Yes, and when you put so much into it and you have a bad day, a bad workout, then it's a bad day. When really the workout should never be that important.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it done is what's important, just doing the activity, not like, yeah, you're going to have good days and bad days, but the whole day would be spent with butterflies thinking about the workout that I know is going to kick my ass.
Sure.
And then if it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, it was a bad day.
Sure. And, you know, there are people that crave that, but they tend not to be the majority of people. Again, one thing I love about the way you do things is when I'm trying to steer the average person towards a healthier life, I look towards the way you do things. The masses tend to not be motivated by dreading a workout all day, by feeling stressed about a timeline. The flip side of that is sometimes having a goal is good for motivation, but I think there's a way to balance those two.
You bet.
I want to kind of switch over a little bit. You've just recently left Men's Health, which I was actually surprised to see because I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and I was reading through my Men's Health not long ago and saw your Game of Thrones workout, and then the next thing I knew, I heard you'd left, and I was like, whoa! So just making that first step to start your own business, making a jump to leave what had to be a very cool setup. What goes into that, and what advice might you have for people looking at branching off and doing their own thing in the fitness industry?
Well, so I had a unique situation where that was actually the first job I ever had. I was an entrepreneur from the moment I graduated college, and I was a personal trainer. I did community boot camps, I did corporate boot camps, I had various online startups. Some that are listening might remember things like Workout Muse, which are interval training soundtracks for boot camps and Metcon style workouts. And then I had a company called StreamFit, which was the first streaming fitness company. It ended up not working out the way I hoped it would. I got an investment from 5 angel investors and had some promise, but ultimately did not come to what it needed to be. And I found myself in a situation where it was kind of a crossroads where maybe I was going to think about quitting fitness because I thought that StreamFit venture was going to be my retirement. It was going to make us rich, and didn't turn out that way. In fact, I burned through most of my savings because I was unsalaried and found myself almost starting over 10 years into my career after building myself up to this point. And the Men's Health opportunity came kind of at the perfect time because I had accumulated all this on-camera experience. I had programmed hundreds and hundreds, thousands of workouts, and they needed someone to come and make content as their fitness director. And so again, I always touch on that, you never know what current failure is going to set the tone for the next big opportunity. And that's really how you have to approach this, is failing forward. Every time you have a setback or you restart, you hope to start at a higher level. And I've managed to do that all along the way. It was interesting 2 years. I gained a much bigger following. I learned a lot about how it works working at a company, but I knew going in, and it was reaffirmed that I'm kind of a lone wolf. I'm introverted. I don't really like people, if I'm being completely honest. They wear me out. And I also like to operate at a very fast tempo. And when you work at a large company, things just have to go slower. There's a lot more cogs in the wheel, and I don't even know if that's the right expression. But yeah, so a lot of valuable lessons, and ultimately I just wanted to go back to doing my own thing, and I'm now doing that with a much bigger following than I had when I entered. And I had consulted for Men's Health for about 5 years prior to that too, so that was a long-time relationship. It was only 2 years there as an employee. And the biggest thing I would say, you mentioned, the new site is a Daily BJ. So part of why I wanted to leave is, again, when you work for a brand or a corporate type of environment, you've got to be more vanilla. And I'm capable of doing that, and I've done that for a long time in my life, and I kind of just want to be myself at this point. You know, like, I'm a strange guy. I like to have fun. I like to be more than the one-dimensional, you know, trainer with that tight polo shirt and the khaki pants, which is fine. If that's you, keep doing it, but that's not me, and I could only do that for so long. So that's really what it was. And in terms of going out on your own, the biggest thing I would give advice on is set it up exactly the way you want it to be. Too many people will think it's important to think about the customer, but if you're setting up a business model that goes against the core of who you are, there's only so long you'll be able to fulfill that.
Yeah.
And then even when it's successful, if it is successful, because it's hard, it's not serving you truly in the way you want it to. And so to me, it's like, look, people have been calling me blowjob since middle school. Let's just put it. It's like the Eminem 8 Mile moment. Look, what are you going to say about me I haven't heard yet? So the Daily BJ. By the way, you get daily workouts from me. My name is BJ. So if you want to take your mind to that level, but it's also to me immediately pushing people away that are not my people. You know, like.
Sure. That aren't comfortable with a little bit of irreverence or whatever.
At some point, you're gonna hate me because I'm gonna say something or present something in a way that is gonna bother you. Like once a month, this is terrible advice, but I'll give this advice. Once a month, I'd like to do something that loses me followers, because like I did a twerking video to Nicki Minaj, like with short shorts of my dogs recently, and I lost like 500 followers, and like. That's hard. It's hard work to get 500 followers, but really what that is people that were never really interested in my stuff. Because if you like my stuff, one video is probably not going to push you away. But if you're kind of on the fence and then you see that video, it's like, he sucks, I'm not going to follow him. Well, good. Now you're out of the system.
Sure.
And it brings the people that like you even closer, because now they're learning more about you. And
so you have stronger following. You might have a few less, but it is a stronger following.
Exactly.
More consistent, probably more invested following.
You bet. And so again, I'm not trying to say that you have to be politically incorrect or try to be something you're not. But again, like, because that's the thing too. If you're kind of like a really square, straight person, straight edge, like trying to be goofy and strange, it's just not going to work out.
Sure.
Just like me being vanilla all the time is not going to work out. So. It's the authenticity of whatever brand you're trying to build and being okay with however many people are interested in that, because at the end of the day, if it's not set up the way you want, it's not worth it.
No doubt. And you're going to burn out probably because it's not an extension of your real purpose. It's not an extension of who you are. You don't feel like you're expressing yourself through it, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a great opportunity. I'm very thankful to Men's Health. But ultimately, being on my own now the last 5 weeks at this point that we're recording the interview, it's just great, man. Like, the limitation really is like, how much work can I get done in a day? And that's how I like to be set up versus, like waiting. I'm not a patient guy, so you got to know that about yourself. But some people thrive in that environment and would hate having to wake up and, not know what is going to happen today or the next week.
Well, it's a risk.
It's a risk.
And it's all on you, so there's a little bit more pressure in that regard. The security blanket's gone. Yeah. I want to end with, this is a question I always like to end with. I have I guess just a fantasy that somehow I will create the world's greatest development system and change humans as we know it. They're going to be, create a greater human civilization. So I always like to end with, if you could create one rite of passage for all our society, what would it be?
I'm a firm believer in daily movement with passion and purpose. And I think we overemphasize what that exact movement has to be. One thing I'll say, like, look, you got two people, right? Identical twins. One person gets the perfect workout. They're both training for an hour a day, let's just say. You give one twin the perfect system based on the latest science and research, and the other one is just doing an hour of random movement. How much different is that outcome going to be? 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. Not to diminish what we do, but just the fact that they're getting an hour of movement is accomplishing so much. It's giving them the 80-20 rule, really, right? Like, good programming gets you the last 20%, but just getting that quality movement and consistently gets you the 80. So to me, it's basically unlocking for people or sharing enough stuff with people that they can find whatever style of movement works for them that lets them get that hour. And if I can let them do that in a way that is fun, that will be the cherry on top. And that really is kind of the pulse for me, man. Like, what I really enjoy is to create killer content that I know people are doing in gyms and homes around the world. And because I know what that unlocks for them and what it's unlocked for me and what that ends up unlocking in their life. And if I can do it in a way that makes them laugh and have some fun, you know, that is how I hope I can be remembered long term.
Right on. I think that's a great point, too. There's certainly better ways of doing things, but it's a humbling and really instructive place to return to remind yourself that for someone who's just, you know, the average person who just wants to feel better, look better, live longer and better, you know, better quality, getting there and moving every day is probably the most important thing. So you might be the greatest programmer in the world. You might, you know, be able to coach someone and get them to learn these advanced skills better than anyone in the world. But I think we can often get so excited about those fitness nerd details that we forget that just getting there really matters and getting more people there.
Yes, I mean, that's the fun stuff too, man. I love that stuff. I geek out on the minutia all the time. But again, like, I've been doing this for 2+ decades of training, and you know, like, I'm playing around with the new Go Eccentric flywheel trainer, which is amazing. You know, and so it's just like, I guess what I'm talking, like, there is like so much available to us, so many different things we can try. And by the way, it is like legit. This flywheel trainer. Have you ever been on it?
No.
Oh man, it's. I mean, you can do anything on that thing, and you get this great eccentric overload. And again, I'm like, my job at Men's Health was, right, and that's part of it too. I'll try to leave the professionals with is the biggest mistake we can make as trainers and strength coaches is designing programs to impress our peers versus designing programs that serve our people. A lot of people would give me shit about the stuff I would make for Men's Health. This is too basic. This is too simple. Just using dumbbells and body weight. But it's like, look, I have access to all the analytics. I know all about the engagements. The moment you use a kettlebell versus a pair of dumbbells, the engagement goes down 2/3. The moment you add 2 pieces of equipment versus 1, the engagement gets cut in half. Like, so this might seem basic to you, but a push-up to the average person is still novel, which is why, like, every 6 months they would cover how to do push-ups.
Sure.
So
the barrier to entry is way lower, though.
Exactly. So that's a big part of it. Like, a lot of the stuff I share, I don't even really do that much anymore, or I just know that it's what the people want. Like, I don't like Metcon. I'm 6'2", 225. Metcon is like hell for me. Like, I almost die. Like, it's great for getting shredded, but like, I'm more of a metabolic bodybuilding style of training. I like more of the muscle work. I think, frankly, a lot of us need a lot more bodybuilding in our lives these days because people get no time under tension. They have no mind-muscle connection. We go right away. We push people right away into these whole-body systemic workouts, and no one even knows what it feels like to contract their bicep, or, you know, because they're going right to pull-ups or kipping pull-ups. But so, you know, that's the biggest thing. Like, and when I post like stuff that I really enjoy, it doesn't do as well as like a straight Metcon circuit that, like, frankly, I'm not going to do today because I don't feel like killing myself. So that's part of it too. Is I know who I'm trying to serve, and I'm willing to show them things that maybe I have done in the past but don't currently do because they enjoy it, or might be a little more choreographed and entertainment than actual training. But again, like, if it gets them to do it, that's the success, right? You know, because like the same thing on Instagram, man. Like, you share one movement, not going to do as well as 3 to 5 movements. Even though, like, I'll go on lunge for an hour. Like, to some people that's crazy, but to me it's the simplest, most effective workout. I put in a podcast. I'm getting shred and gains, strength and conditioning, mobility. But who's going to go lunge for an hour, right? I mean, just
sure.
It's ridiculous. So then I got to make a workout with 10 different ways to lunge, because it's different enough for those with exercise ADD that the time passes faster. They feel like it's more fun, it's more engaging. When in reality, we know that it probably would have been just fine to lunge for an hour. That's what I say. And to that point, we spend so much time. I see so many trainers trolling other trainers, and I'm like, we do the same thing. Like, you understand that, like, we're doing the same thing. This isn't a competition. There's a lot of people out there for everyone. Okay. So to me, whenever I see a trainer troll another trainer, not that I'm writing names down or anything, but that's someone I would never work with. That's someone who doesn't respect the profession. And I've had people badmouth me a lot. I had someone try to block me from working with Men's Health 7 years ago. He's one of the most popular people on the continuing education circuits that speak to other trainers. And
really?
He went out of his way to call Men's Health and say that this guy, don't work with this guy, because I did a video called Shit Women Say to Personal Trainers, where I dressed as a woman, and I went through all those, like, what do you think about scenarios, like, what do you think about Jillian Michaels' program? What do you think, like, it was really just a cathartic, like, every trainer's heard these questions, and he's like, oh, he's not serious enough, and he's hurting our industry. And about 2 or 3 months ago, they wanted to use him as an expert, and I had the opportunity, if I wanted to block him from being used as the expert. But I didn't. He knows who he is. I would never try to mess with someone's livelihood or someone's career. People have a way of doing that on their own. They don't need any help.
Sure.
So again, like, to me, that is what truly speaks to character. I've always, in my career, gone out of my way to help people and elevate people and work from a space of abundance versus scarcity. And the biggest problem, in my opinion, in this industry is we have people that operate from the other angle, from scarcity, like, this is mine. I don't want anybody else accessing this. And when you have that mindset, you might make a lot of money, you might find yourself in a position of power, but ultimately you are cheapening your overall ability to impact people, because there is nothing more powerful than finding someone with passion, with purpose, and talent, and elevating them and giving them a platform to truly reach their potential, because through them, you end up reaching so many more people. As a strength coach, I'm sure you know this too, like, things get very territorial. You probably have a lot of your athletes that might work with personal trainers on the side, and they're all trying to do different programs, and their parents are trying to get them into the elite 6-week, 10-inch vertical boosting program. You got to have humility. You got to be willing to understand with who you're working with. But I share that because I'm sure you have a lot of trainers listening, and it's a real thing, man. And for some reason, people are so cutthroat in this industry, and they don't want to help other people that they see as threats. And my point is that no one's really a threat. If you're good at what you do, no one's a threat.
That's a great point. There's so much need for what the fitness industry is doing. There's so much, we've already talked, all the health, mental, emotional problems tied to health, as well as the health disorders. There's so much need. We need to be bonding together, figuring out other ways that we can better reach people. We need to be making this an environment that's attractive to people. So I couldn't agree more. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners with other than of course taking a check at thedailybj.com?
You can follow me on social at BJ Gaddour, BJ-Gaddour. It's funny also that there's a double D in my name to go with the whole innuendo of my entire brand. But I share a lot of free workouts and content there. And again, like, that's the one thing. I never had access to training. I had access to good coaches, strength coaches along the way, but I never had access to, like, training growing up. So I try to make things as accessible as possible. Even if you don't want to get involved at a higher level with what I do, I think you can come up with some pretty cool stuff by following me on social media. And
absolutely, yes, I can speak to that.
Get the occasional twerking video too, which is like,
everyone needs that.
Yeah, not many people can do that. That's the thing.
No, it's impressive.
Once a month, I'll leave you with this too. Once a month, I truly believe you have to ask yourself the question, what can I do that nobody else can? And do it. I made a video for Men's Health called the 14 baby making exercises for Valentine's Day. By the way, all legit movements, but I was dressed as Cupid wearing a diaper, pretty much naked, if we're being honest about it. But who else is willing to do that? And it had a big reach. It gave people a bunch of cool exercises to try, and it opened the door for them to discover the more serious stuff I do. So again, like, you know, it's one of those things, like, don't knock people. If you want to play the game, people want to build a big following on social media in our industry. Well, it probably means that you might do some shirtless stuff. So if you want to play the game, you got to be willing to do some things that are outside of your comfort zone, knowing what the ultimate goal is, right? Because at the end of the day, that is the only way you will ever find a way to separate yourself from what others do.
Sure, and I'll second that. If you're into the fitness writing, you have some sort of unique experience that don't write the same article that's been written thousands and thousands of times already. There's 1,000,000,001 articles on how to do this, how to do that. Find your voice, your experience, and how that you can amplify and maybe connect to somebody in a way they haven't been connected to before. Say something in a new, novel way. See some sort of connection based on your own experience. BJ, thanks so much for taking the time. There's a great risk that we might have pissed a few people off throughout this, but I think that's a great thing. I hope people can look at what we're actually saying here and what you've actually been saying. There's a phenomenal message of being willing to drop dogmas or maybe drop your defenses and look at things from different perspectives. I think the fitness industry needs that. So thank you.
I predict a future headline that goes, "Fitness man murdered by 5 vegans at Five Guys and Fries," the moment that this episode gets released.
Yeah, I think you might need a little security for a while or something. Right on. Well, thanks so much, BJ. It's been awesome.
My pleasure, man. Keep up the great work, Shane.
All right.